our world, it's Keely and I'm back for another video. This is going to be my incredibly overly ambitious spring TBR. But what I'm going to do first is start it off with the books that I'm currently reading and then the books that I'd like to work on in March. And then we'll just go from there and I'll show you all of the books. You can see I already have 2 stacks. That's not including the ones that are in front of me that you can't see. Let's start with the books that I am currently reading. Today I think is the 28th of February. I am probably only going to finish 1 or 2 more books by the end of the month. But the main one that I'm reading right now is A Woman Is No Man by Ita Frum. This is for Jenny's book club, the Boundless Press book club. I will link her channel and her book club down below. This one is by a Palestinian American author, and this one is following kind of 2 main characters. Isra in the 90s, moving from Palestine to the United States to get married, and then in 2008 you're following Isra's daughter Dea, and it's 2 very similar but very, very different stories that are happening kind of back and forth. So it's like one chapter is Isra, one is Dea. With Isra's chapters, it's coming from Palestine and an arranged marriage and moving all by herself to the United States to live with the family of her new husband and battling the internal monologue that she has with herself about what it means to be a woman existing in this kind of like multicultural environment where she was raised very traditionally with very traditional values in Palestine and then moves to the United States in this family that is a mixture of American ideals and then traditional Palestinian values. And so it's been really interesting, really stressful as a reader at times, which I think it speaks to the character development in this book. You're really rooting for these characters, so if anything goes wrong, it's like incredibly stressful, and I don't know how it's gonna end. I am enjoying it so much. I'm about 55% of the way through that one, just reading it on my Kindle at night. Really enjoying it though. Then I also am reading a handful of nonfiction. Last night I started this one from the library. This is The Displaced: Refugee Writers on Refugee Lives, edited by Viet Thanh Nguyen. And I have never read anything by this author. I know that they wrote The Sympathizer, which has been on my list for a very long time, like since it came out. I think I have a Kindle version, so maybe I will start that one very soon. But this one is a collection of refugee writers from all over the world that are then writing about their experience. And so far, I'm not far into it at all. I only read the introduction last night, which is written by the editor. Additionally, I am, of course, working my way through a bunch of other ones. I am still reading The 100 Years War on Palestine by Rashid Khalidi. This one, a lot of people are reading for good reason. I have not picked it up since I read the first 40 pages because I got distracted by some other ones, but I do really want to come back to this one and continue to make progress. This is going to be very much a slow read. A lot of the nonfiction, unless it's from the library, are going to be very slow reads for me because I don't want to rush through them. I want to actually absorb the content. You might see me flying through fiction like normal, but not so much trying to fly through nonfiction. So I will be reading this one. Then I've also been reading Manufacturing Consent, The Political Economy of Mass Media by Edward Herman and Noam Chomsky. This one is the newest version of this. It got updated in, I think, 2011. And I just reached the part of the introduction where they are covering the Vietnam War and things that were marketed, how the United States decided what they were going to put in the media and share with the public about what was happening and what they didn't share, and the realities of what was actually happening. So very interested. So I want, now that I've read the beginning part of this, I want to go back and finish this section of the introduction and then move into the preface and then move finally into the actual book. Also, we'll probably finish this one faster than any of the other ones just because it's already a very fast read. This one is The Address Book by Deirdre Mask, and this is what street addresses reveal about identity, race, wealth, and power. This one has been so fascinating. I sat down on my couch the other day and flew through the first 3 chapters. So now I'm in the next chapter, which is talking about where street names come from. And there's already been really horrific street names that the author has been talking about. I mean, it kind of started, this whole concept started because the author was looking for a new place to live, found a house that they absolutely loved, but didn't want to live on the street because the street name was like Little Black Boy Lane or something, which is a horrific name for a street. That created this interest for the author, for Deirdre, into like, how do we name things and what does this mean for people and why are we doing this? And then it kind of unveiled this much bigger conversation around what having an address, like a street name or a number on the house or hut or tent or wherever you live, having that piece of your identity, like what that means for you as part of society. And so far, she has been talking a lot about addresses in terms of its benefits for epidemiology and tracking the spread of disease. I know that eventually she's going to move into the negative parts of having an address, like being able to be tracked by the government or law enforcement. I've very much been enjoying this one, but also trying to slow down still with this one and get to other ones. Then we have a handful of other nonfiction that I will be working my way through, ones that are not specific to March yet. These are just newer nonfictions that I've picked up. Supplementing my reading for the address book, I also picked up The Color of Law by Richard Rothstein. I think this one is the one that people have heard of probably more so than this one. I actually went to Barnes & Noble to get a copy of this and saw this and picked this one up first. But this one is all about a forgotten history of how our government segregated America. So typically with redlining, at least my very limited knowledge of redlining, has to do with school districts and how governments decide, well, if you live on this side of the street, you go to this school district, but if you live on this side, you go to this school district, and then how people will move or not move, but say that they have a different address specifically so that they can fall into a specific school district. I know it's way more involved than that, but that is my very limited overview knowledge. This piece of hair is driving me absolutely crazy. That is my very limited knowledge of what this book will cover. I know it's going to be way more than that, but I am very excited I'm just going to put it on this side. Very excited to dive into this one as well. And then the final two nonfiction that I have right now that I will be writing all over because they're my copies are Africa is Not a Country by Dipo Falwin, and this is Notes on a Bright Continent. This is all about Africa and dispelling a lot of the myths that we have about Africa, probably specifically with the United States, where we don't really know anything about Africa. Like we're taught very limited things. At least that's my experience. I'm obviously making generalizations, but that's my experience, is that we're not really taught anything positive about Africa. It's really just like you learn about Africa as a whole and not the various cultures that exist within it. Very excited to dive into that one. I've heard amazing things. And then the other one is one that one of my friends recommended. The same friends that have been recommending me a lot of nonfiction also recommended Open Veins of Latin America by Eduardo Galeano, and this is with a foreword by Isabel Allende. This is 5 centuries of the pillage of a continent, and this is all about colonialism in Latin America, which I know nothing about. I know even less about Latin America than I do about anywhere else. So this is one that I'm very interested to get to as well. And I've noticed themes where some of the stuff that I'm covering in one book is getting talked about in another book. So that's also why a lot of the times I slow down and I pick up a different book. It's because oh, they mentioned Vietnam, and then, oh, they mentioned Vietnam, and then, bouncing back and forth. Those are all the books that I have that are nonfiction that I own. Let's get into the library books that I picked up that are nonfiction. So we have Everything You Already Know About Your Own Racism and How to Do Better, White Women, with a Guide to Start the Unlearning by Regina Jackson and Sarah Rao. And I am very, very interested in this one. It is not that big. I love that this is going to be covering white woman racism as a white woman in the United States. And I think I have a lot of the same experiences of a lot of white women in the United States, in that we try really hard and we read a lot, but a lot of our knowledge is still very white woman focused, maybe not even realizing that it is very middle class, upper class white women experience, or even sometimes lower class white women experience, and that is not a cohesive, that doesn't make up the majority of the world. And so I'm very much interested in fixing that and continuing to work. It's like a lifelong process, obviously. Very, very interested in having hard conversations with myself with this one. Then we have two more that are very similar. We have On Critical Race Theory, Why It Matters and Why You Should Care by Victor Ray, another one recommended by one of my friends. If you, again, live in the United States, you hear a lot about critical race theory over the last few years, where it's thrown out very negatively in context of oh, well, we're gonna ruin our kids because we're teaching them critical race theory in elementary school, and that is not the case at all. But I want to know more about critical race theory and what it actually is. And the last one that I'm also very excited to get to is Black Women Taught Us, An Intimate History of Black Feminism by Jen M. Jackson, PhD. And I'm very, very excited for this one. I've read some work from Black feminists like Audre Lorde or Bell Hooks, but I definitely want to continue to supplement my knowledge and continue to read. All right, now that I've ranted about all of that, this is gonna be a long ass video. Let's get into the books that I will be reading for March. March has a lot of different readathons. There's like March of the Mammoths, there's like Mystery March, Middle Grade March, all kinds of things. I will not be formally participating in any of them. I really wanna learn more about Ireland. And so I have 2 books, Ireland, that I am going to hopefully get to this month in March. The first one is We Don't Know Ourselves, A Personal History of Modern Ireland by Fintan O'Toole. This one was a recommendation from Jill from the book Bully. She absolutely loved this book. This one is a memoir, but also talking about the history of Ireland. And I just think it's going to be great because Jill thinks it's great and I tend to agree with her. So I'm very excited about this one. The next one that I have, I'm also very excited about. And this one is Malachi McCord's History of Ireland. He is a very funny author. And this one so far, you know, I've only read the introduction and I already really enjoyed it. So I am very excited to see how much I can learn about Ireland from these 2. I've done one of those ancestry things. I know that they're not the most accurate thing in the world. It also reaffirmed family knowledge that I had, that a lot of my family on one side is from Central Ireland. And so I would really love to eventually go to Ireland. We might go to Ireland in the next few years. I'm very excited about that. The next books that I have to show you are for my work book club. We will be reading 2 books. Traditionally, we read 1 book every 2 months, and we read books that were nonfiction for the first 2 months of the year. Now the next 2 months of the year will be fiction books. And so one of the ones that was voted on was Beloved by Toni Morrison, which I am very, very excited to get to. I have a feeling this one is going to break my heart, but that's okay. I'm very excited to finally read some Toni Morrison. And then the other one is Fledgling by Octavia Butler, which I think is on my TBR cart wrapped. And that sucks because it's just a typical paperback and there are so many of them. So I'm gonna have to like sit there and unwrap a bunch of books until I find Fledgling. But Fledgling is a vampire story, and this one is about, it says, staring unflinchingly into the abyss of slavery, the spellbinding novel transforms history into a story as powerful as Exodus and as intimate as a lullaby. Sethe is its protagonist, was born a slave and escaped to Ohio, but 18 years later, she's still not free. She has too many memories of sweet home, the beautiful farm where so many hideous things happened, and her new home is haunted by the ghost of her baby who died nameless and whose tombstone is engraved with a single word, beloved. Very, very excited to get to this one. We'll be reading that one first. So those are my book club for work books. Let's get into the stack that I have from the library. So this one I don't think will take me that long. I might actually take this one on vacation. This is Salt and Broom by Sharon Lynn Fisher. This is a kind of like witchy vibes. They go to a house and there's more about the house than they originally thought. Then we have the second book in the Emily Wilde series. So this one is Emily Wilde, Map of the Other Lands by Heather Fawcett. Freaking loved the first one. It is a fantasy where Emily Wilde is a PhD student researching and documenting fairies in mythical Iceland. And in the first book, her rival shows up and just like decides that he's going to be part of her life. And I loved the first book so much. A lot of people really did. It's just very like atmospheric, very cozy. So super excited to read this one. Then we have a couple books that were recommendations from Jen Campbell. And one is Chrysalis by Anne Metcalf, which is all about a woman who starts weightlifting. And I believe this is one where it's told, her story is told from the perspective of people in her life that are watching it happen. I don't think we ever actually hear from her. So very excited for that one. Then we have All the Little Bird Hearts by Victoria Lloyd Barlow, which was longlisted for the Booker Prize. This one is an own voices about someone that has autism. We have Girl, Woman, Other by Bernardine Evaristo. This won the Booker Prize in 2019, so I can mark this one off of my Booker Prize backlist. And I think this one may have also been on like Women's Prize list. Maybe I'll have to look it up. And this one is about the intersections of identity and a moving and hopeful story of a group of Black British women. Heard amazing things. Very excited. Then we have The Center by Aisha Manazir Siddiqui, and this is about a woman who is working as a translator, and her partner is either like her partner, her brother, some dude that's in her life ends up learning a language basically overnight and is like, what the hell? How can you do that? And he says, well, there's this place called The Center where you can go and they will teach you a language very quickly, but there's something you have to trade. I don't watch it be like years off your life or something. I don't know. And then we have Diary of a Void by Emi Yagi. This one is about a woman who is tired of how she's treated at the office and one day decides to say that she's pregnant so that people will treat her better, but she's not pregnant. And then the final one, and one that I have to read faster than those because this one is due back soon, is The Bandit Queens by Parini Shroff. This one is about a woman that her husband leaves her, but there's a rumor that she killed him, and it's safer where she lives in her village for that to be the case. And then a bunch of other women start coming up to her believing that she murdered her husband, asking for help getting rid of theirs. So very, very interested to hear how that one is, or to see how that one is going to go. And then one that I have started is this one, Never Seen. This is Keeper of Lost Cities book 4. I read book 3 this month and absolutely loved it. I love this series. It's one of my favorites ever. This is a middle grade series about Sophie, who is a telepath and has a bunch of magical powers. She's also an elf, and so in the first book she realizes that like she just doesn't belong with the students and the people that she lives with, and then someone shows up and says, hey, I'm actually the same way. I can take you to the people that I'm living with and uncover a brand new world for you. And so you're just following along with the same kind of core group of people in each story as the world kind of evolves and they have to battle different things, and I just love it so much. So very excited to continue with this one. And then the other one that I have that I really want to get to is Endless Terrors by KJ Sutton. This is book 5 in the Fortuna Sworn series. This one I can't really tell you anything about because I have no idea what it's going to be about, but it just continues on from the first 4 books. Fortuna Sworn series is a dark romantasy. Fortuna Sworn is a nightmare. So in the first book, she is living in this small town trying to figure out what happened to her brother who went missing, while also kind of hiding the fact that she has magical powers from humans because she doesn't want them to know. And then one day an elf shows up and says, is he an elf or a fairy? I think he's an elf. He shows up and says, I know what happened to your brother. And then shenanigans ensue. Okay, so those are all the books that are like my main reads. I have read 34 books so far this year, and like I said, I think it's the 28th of February. I definitely, if I can continue on with this momentum, will be working through a lot of books. Will these be all of the ones that I read? Probably not. I'm hoping I can get to all of them, but we'll see. Then I have, let's move these other 2 stacks over and we can talk about these ones too. Some of these might be repeats from previous videos because, as you can tell, I'm reading a lot, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm finishing everything that I'm starting. Others are just ones that I've had for a while that I would really like to get to. So we have Gun Island by Amitav Ghosh. This one takes place in Kolkata and it has a lot to do with mythology and the environment. This one is The Memory Police by Yoko Ogawa, which is, it says, on an unnamed island, objects are disappearing. Most of the inhabitants are oblivious to these changes, while those few able to recall the lost objects live in fear of the draconian memory police who are committed to ensuring that what has disappeared remains forgotten. Then we have 2 that I got for Christmas a couple years ago that I never read. So we have Breasts and Eggs by Miko Kawakami. I've now read 2 from this author, so very excited to read a longer one. This one takes place in Tokyo, where there are a couple women and their lives are like interacting with each other. And then we have a hopefully more fun one compared to a lot of the other ones, which is Tokyo Ever After by Emiko Jean. This is the first book in a series, and this is about Izumi, or Izzy, who is Japanese American and then ends up having to go back to her small town in Japan and discovers that she's part of royalty. So very excited for that one. All right, final stack, y'all. This is so long, but that's okay. Some of these feel very spring vibes to me. So I really, really want to finally read Wolf Hall. I've had this one on my shelf for so long. I have the second one. I just never got to any of her books, and so I really want to fix that because I know Jill from the Book Bully loves Hilary Mantel's work, so I really want to read that one. This is the retelling of, oh, what's his name? Thomas Cromwell. That's these books. Then we have The Secret History by Donna Tartt, which is one that I've put off forever. I know so many people have also put it off. This one is supposed to be like dark academia. I think it's like one of the most well-known dark academia out there. I haven't read anything from Donna Tartt, but I really want to read this one. Then we have Dissolution by C.J. Sansom, which is the first book in the Matthew Shardlake mystery series that takes place in the 1500s in England. So again, Thomas Cromwell is involved, but this one is like a murder mystery. I also need to work through Lords of Chaos by Robert Jordan. This is book 6 in the Wheel of Time series. I am a decent amount of the way through the prologue. Robert Jordan loves a prologue, and holy shit, like just make it chapters. Like, why is there a 70-page prologue in this book? That is insane. I hate that so much. So I need to finish the prologue and move through the rest of this book because I'm the only one now from our group that hasn't read it. So I need to read it. We have a Frankenstein retelling by Jeanette Winterson. This was longlisted for the Booker Prize. This one is a retelling. Brexit gripped Britain, and it has to do with a transgender doctor, an AI creation, and a professor. So very excited about this one. And then two that I've started that I need to finish, hopefully this month, are How Long Until Black Future Month by N.K. Jemisin, which is a collection of Afrofuturism short stories. And then also Black Leopard, Red Wolf by Marlon James. This is the first book in the Dark Star trilogy, and I am up to at least part 2 at this point, but I put it down to pick up A Woman Is No Man. So I really need to get back to this one and finish it so I can read the second one. Are these all of the books that I really want to get to over the next few months? Not even close, but that's okay. We'll see how this all plays out. This is going to take forever to edit and hopefully then get posted today or tomorrow. But yeah, I'm just excited that I'm reading. I'm loving everything that I'm reading. I have other stacks of books that I'm working my way through. I bought more books that I also need to work my way through. I will try to keep my channel updated as much as I can on like what I'm reading, but the best places to follow my reading are on Storygraph or my Bookstagram. So I will post both of those down below if you are interested. And if you have a Bookstagram account or a Storygraph account, please let me know because I'd love to follow you guys. And that's it. Let me know if you read any of these and what you thought of them. And thanks so much for watching. Bye.